Hey everybody, so I'm bringing you guys a video on the privacy of different sort of not necessarily algorithms, but different types of ways privacy is achieved. I've got basically the 5 basic ways. There's one more way I didn't add in here, and that's user-end encryption, and that just helps against peer-to-peer analysis. But as you can see, I have pretty high rankings up there for peer-to-peer analysis on most of these coins, so I'm not going to talk about that here. But anyways, I want to talk about the categories here that I have listed and what I am specifically ranking these coins on. And so let's get to that before I go to the actual rankings I give to any of the coins. So the first category is the blockchain analysis. Now, what I mean by blockchain analysis, I'm just ranking the coin on whether or not someone can look at the blockchain and figure out, whose transactions are who. And so if it has a public blockchain that it's easy to trace people with, it ranks low on this. The next category is peer-to-peer analysis. Now, peer-to-peer analysis it's not analysis by a hostile agent of transactions like blockchain analysis is. Instead, peer-to-peer analysis, the hostile attacker will try and have as many nodes as possible, and they'll try and learn as much as they can about the other nodes on the network. And so that's what peer-to-peer analysis is. The private accounting, this one's interesting because for some coins, like I'm not necessarily ranking how much it costs for the private accounting. I'm ranking how good it is. And what I mean by private accounting, I don't actually mean like kept away from people. I mean your own personal accounting. Can you prove things? Can you use the blockchain for your own personal uses as like your own accountant, like as a backup accountant in case you need to like let's say you have a mistake in your own accounting, can you check the blockchain for your accounting? And generally speaking, like sometimes if the privacy of the coin gets better, the private accounting gets worse. And again, when I use the word private, I don't mean like kept hidden, I don't mean secret, I just mean personal, like you're doing it yourself, okay? And so you need a coin, or you want a coin that's private but has good private accounting, and by that I just mean you can prove certain things to certain people, but you get to choose who you prove it to. Anyways, the next point is supply auditability, and that's just the ability of the currency to prove that its total supply is like exactly what it's supposed to be. And obviously that's important because you don't want a currency where you accidentally have duplications that aren't authorized. Like for the US dollar, they call that counterfeiting. And if you're using something like gold or silver, they call those counterfeits as well, but that would just mean they aren't actually consisting of gold or silver. But anyways, you need supply auditability to make sure that every coin in the system is legitimate. And again, if the privacy gets too good, it gets hard to do supply auditability. So this is it's one of those sort of things you have to balance and weigh and measure all the things involved. And then the next category is providing proof of purchase. And by that I just mean, can you use the blockchain to prove you purchased something in case later on you have some sort of I don't want to necessarily use the word conflict because that implies violence, but if there's some sort of like issue with the purchase, if you have to return it or something, can you use the blockchain just to be like, yeah, look, you can look on the blockchain and you can prove I purchased it. That's always really nice on blockchains, and again, the more private it gets, the harder it gets to do. If we go over to now over to the coins and look at these coins individually, for Bitcoin, it's very vulnerable, or it's very vulnerable to blockchain analysis. Now, blockchain analysis for Bitcoin, it still costs money, so there has to be a reason for somebody to try or to trace you down. But if there's a reason for somebody to trace you down, they can do it. It is possible. So it's a blockchain analysis. I give it a 4 out of 10. You can also build things on top of Bitcoin to make it more private. The problem with that is it costs a lot more. it costs a lot more money to make Bitcoin private than it does to use another coin that just has privacy features built into the coin. So it's not that private, but it can be. But anyways, it's peer-to-peer analysis. I give it a 9 out of 10. That's just because there's quite a few peers on the Bitcoin network. There's not as many as you would hope for with how big the Bitcoin network is, but there's enough that it's very hard to do any sort of peer-to-peer analysis with the limited data that's available. The private accounting, and again, this is the accounting that you can do personally. Like if you move things on the blockchain, it's publicly available for anybody. So that makes it very good for accounting purposes, and just because you can always like look at the blockchain if you have your address and the transactions, you can always look at the blockchain and see where the bitcoins are. So it's really easy for you to use the Bitcoin blockchain for your own personal accountant like cheat sheet sort of. The supply auditability on Bitcoin, again, it's very easy to see all the 21 million Bitcoin. Again, there's not 21 million Bitcoin out there yet. There's like 16 and a half million, but you can see all of them in all of their addresses if you really wanted to. I mean, it takes a little effort, but you could see them. Providing proof of purchase, I give that a 10 out of 10 again. With Bitcoin, obviously, the blockchain is publicly available, so proof of purchase, it's right there on the blockchain. If we go down to CoinJoin now, this is with Dash primarily. Now the difference, CoinJoin also applies to other currencies like PIVX. Again, I'm not separating these into currencies other than the first one because Bitcoin's like sort of the standard. It's just pseudonymity, and then these other applied features go on top of pseudonymity. So CoinJoin is a feature you can apply on top of pseudonymity. Like I said, PIVX uses CoinJoin. There's a lot of other coins that use different versions of CoinJoin now. Dash is the standard though, so that's why I have it in parentheses underneath. But CoinJoin is, as far as blockchain analysis goes, there's a 9 out of 10 on its privacy. It's very hard to trace transactions in through CoinJoin as long as it uses the Dash protocol or a similar standard one that protects against all the various ways they can try and trace coin joins. As long as it uses the Dash protocol or something of similar strength, it's 9 out of 10. There's very little that can be learned about private individuals unless those private individuals want to show you, but there are certain things you can learn about the network as a whole. The peer-to-peer analysis on CoinJoin is a little bit lower. I only say that because it uses proof of stake as part of its network, so there is sort of an incentive for nodes to sort of be attackers or hostile because they'll get paid the proof of stake payment. But again, that's a very low risk, but that just makes it sort of have a higher risk on peer-to-peer analysis. But again, its blockchain analysis defense is great. But the private accounting on Dash, it's decent. You can still trace certain things through the blockchain, so you can know if you send a transaction. It's a little like things get very hard to trace. Generally speaking, you can sort of see if a transaction or if you might be able to see if an address received a certain amount if the person you're sending money to wants to reveal certain addresses, but it's a little bit harder, so I'm only giving it an 8 out of 10. You still can use it for your own, like as a cheat sheet for your own accounting purposes, but because it uses CoinJoin, there's less to see on the blockchain. It's not as intuitive to follow it as it is on Bitcoin. The supply auditability on Dash though is a 9 out of 10. You still can do it. You might say it's 10 out of 10. It's easy to do. Obviously, there's a lot of coins and transactions going around because of the CoinJoin that it uses. So I guess that's why you'd say it's 9 out of 10, because there's a lot more transactions going on that you'll have to sort of look at and see. So it's a little bit harder to confirm, I guess it probably would be, but you can still easily do it. It's all right there. The information's all there. It's just a little more work to confirm. But as far as providing proof of purchase, It's 8 out of 10. You can do it. You can prove that, like, if they give you the right, like if they give you an address on Dash that is transparent or public, you can prove that they got paid, but they have to use one of those addresses. So I'm only giving it an 8 out of 10. Obviously, 8 out of 10 is still fine, because as long as, everyone uses the transparent addresses, or I don't know what they call them in Dash, but the public address, as long as you use that, then the proof of purchase is 10 out of 10. If you're using the mixing service way, proof of purchase is much lower. So it depends on which way you use it. Most people, if they want proof of purchase protection, will obviously use the public way. Honestly, most coins will be used in a public manner, rather than private manner for most things, I would believe, but it just kind of depends. Anyways, our next blockchain type that we're looking at are blockchains that use ring signatures. Now, Monero is basically the standard for this. There might be other cryptocurrencies that use ring signatures, but I'm not sure of any that actually do. As far as its protection against blockchain analysis, it's 10 out of 10. It's as good as you can do without zero knowledge. There really isn't a blockchain. There's a blockchain as far as the rings are concerned, and the rings contain the blockchain, but no one has access to the full blockchain in the way that you do with Dash or Bitcoin. So the blockchain analysis is basically perfect. The peer-to-peer analysis, I gave it a 9 out of 10. The fact that everyone is in rings, I don't know enough about how the ring technology works or the ring algorithm works, but if you could try and somehow control a ring, you could potentially control things within, or you could try and gain knowledge about the network and transactions and things. But like, that's super hard to do. I don't know how you would do it. So that's something that's way over my head. I don't even know if it's possible. So peer-to-peer analysis, I gave it a 9 out of 10. It could potentially be possible, but probably not going to happen. As far as private accounting goes and using Monero or ring signature cryptocurrencies for backup and as a cheat sheet for your own private accounting, it's not going to happen. There's basically nothing on the blockchain. I think you might be able to see that things get sent somewhere, maybe, I don't know, but I don't think you can see things coming in anywhere. It's really weird. It's really weird trying to use the blockchain explorer for Monero. I don't really know what I'm looking at. I don't know why they have one if there's really not a blockchain. But anyways, like, there is a blockchain, but there's no data for people to look at, really. But anyways, so because there's no data for people to really look at, you can't use it as a cheat sheet. So I give it a 4 out of 10. And then if we go to our next category, the supply auditability, the one thing about Monero is it does have supply auditability. It's just kind of hard to look at, so I gave it an 8 out of 10. There was a very unique case where Monero got forked with probably the most complex attack in cryptocurrency history. And it got forked, but it was like the same blockchain, but doing two different blocks that were the same block, and it was really weird. It got fixed real quick because for some reason most of the miners were on one network, so the other network didn't really work for a while. But there were some transactions that were screwed up and a lot of money taken out of. There was one exchange in particular, I don't really remember, but that was that was probably the most interesting hack, I guess, in cryptography history. Maybe not cryptography history, but in cryptocurrency history. And so I'll make a video on that on some point. But they were able to figure that out because, well, they weren't able to figure that out because of the supply auditability. It was immediately available, or immediately obvious, because there were two blockchains that were the same blockchain, which was really weird. But the way they were able to look in at the code, and they do have supply auditability. There is a blockchain to check. It's just that each individual user doesn't have full access to it. But anyways, the rings and the signatures for the ring signature has access to it, and so the ring, as long as you're a part of a ring, you know that the supply is 21 million. You just can't personally look at the data, but because you are a part of the ring, the ring proves it for you through the power of cryptography. I'll make a video on ring signatures and more videos on cryptography sometime if that doesn't make sense for you. I'm sure it doesn't for a lot of people. Ring signatures are very interesting. They work in a way that is similar to zero knowledge. Zero knowledge is actually more interesting, and I'll make videos on those too. But anyways, the supply auditability on Monero, 8 out of 10, it's decent. Providing proof of purchase on Monero, 5 out of 10. It kind of sucks. Again, like, I don't know what you can really prove on the blockchain. Not much is all I know. So because of that, it makes it very private. That doesn't make it bad because it seems to work fine. But you know, the only problem with that is you can't really prove anything. You can't use it as a cheat sheet. It is nice to just look at the Bitcoin blockchain and just be like, yep, there's my transaction. Then you can prove you paid somebody. No, like if somebody has a wallet, they can't pretend you didn't pay them. Like you can just prove it on the blockchain. But anyways, let's go to our next type of blockchain technology, and that's one-way zero knowledge. This is the zero knowledge that ZeroCoin uses. It's the ZeroCoin protocol used by Zcoin. That's the cryptocurrency, is Zcoin. But anyways, this is an RSA-based one-way zero knowledge proof. The main difference between the one-way and two-way zero knowledge proofs are how much memory it takes to solve the proof. It takes more memory to solve the proof for one-way zero knowledge proofs. What exactly that means, I think that means that it has more blockchain bloat, or in order to check the blockchain, that requires more energy. It's one of those two, but I think those two are kind of the same thing. Again, I don't know enough about the differences between RSA one-way zero knowledge and two-way ZK snarks zero knowledge to tell you the complete differences as far as the differences on the technical details of the blockchain. But I think it is that the one-way zero knowledge has a larger blockchain than two-way zero knowledge, which is a big thing. Blockchain bloat is basically the biggest problem in cryptocurrencies right now. So if one-way zero knowledge has a bigger blockchain than or if it requires more data per transaction than two-way zero knowledge, that's a big thing, and I think it does. But anyways, let's go ahead and look at the different rankings I gave it here. So the first ranking I gave it was 10 out of 10 for the blockchain analysis. With one-way zero knowledge, if you want to use it privately, you can do it, and there's no data on the zero knowledge blockchain, and so you get a perfectly private transaction. Now, the good thing again about this is that it's linked up with the public blockchain, so you can get perfect privacy, or use or use, I guess, or you can use the pseudonymity of Bitcoin. I can't say you're using perfect, like a perfectly public thing, because it's not your name. You're using still a wallet address, but you can either use the blockchain that's like Bitcoin's, or you can use the one that uses the zero knowledge one. That's what it means to be one way. You can use one or the other. The peer-to-peer analysis on ZeroCoin is very good. That's relative to the size of the network. I'm just talking again about the algorithms. I'm not talking about ZeroCoin in particular. I'm talking about the one-way zero knowledge. It's basically the exact same as Bitcoin because it's just proof of work. Again, you can also use CoinJoin with a. When I talked about CoinJoin, I want to go up to CoinJoin real quick just to, or not familiarize, but to ensure you guys remember that I wasn't talking specifically about Dash, because I did talk about how in CoinJoin Dash uses proof of stake, so I got it a little lower for its peer-to-peer analysis, but it's still decent for peer-to-peer analysis because you don't have to have as high of a percentage as Dash does. Like if I was rating Dash's peer-to-peer analysis itself, I would have rated it lower. But CoinJoin does require proof of stake, so that's why its peer-to-peer analysis was lower. I wasn't saying that just because Dash is proof of stake, but CoinJoin itself was. But anyways, sorry for that little off-topic thing. But if we go back to the one-way zero knowledge, its peer-to-peer analysis is 9 out of 10 because it's just the same as Bitcoin, so you can't rate it differently. That would be retarded. But anyways, if you look at the private accounting for one-way zero knowledge with Zcoin, this one I give it a 9 out of 10 because you can use it just like Bitcoin, but if you use it on the private side, it's very hard to prove things. You can still, I'm pretty sure you can still prove you sent coins, but you can't prove you received them. But that's kind of the point, you know, like that's the point if you're using that. So I only gave it a 9 out of 10. I didn't want to lower it too much, you know, for that. It's similar. It's similar to the rating that CoinJoin should have. They're both around 8 or 9 out of 10. It's hard to tell really what the difference is. You'd have to really understand the protocol of the both algorithms, I guess you'd call them, or just protocols. You'd really just have to understand them. The supply auditability of OneWay Zero Knowledge is, I give it a 9 out of 10 because it's great. It is a little more like with something that has one pseudonymous blockchain like Bitcoin. That's better than having one pseudonymous and one that's not pseudonymous. But the way ZeroCoin does it at the end of every transaction, I think all the coins go back to the original ZeroCoin blockchain, something like that. So it should have perfectly fine supply auditability. It actually has had issues with, it had some sort of bug where ZeroCoin were duplicated and it found out about it right away. But with anything that uses zero knowledge, I'm going to give it a little lower ranking than something that's just pseudonymous. Again, because OneWay is linked up with the pseudonymous Bitcoin or pseudonymous blockchain, it should be just as, it should theoretically have just as high of a ranking as Bitcoin does on supply auditability, but you know it does make people a little more nervous. So I ranked it a 9 out of 10. If we go to the providing proof of purchase, I give it an 8 out of 10 here because it's just like CoinJoin and Dash. You can prove it, but you have to have access to, you have to want to prove it, so somebody with a private key has to prove it, and if you have the private key and you accidentally delete data, then there's not much you can do unless you backed up your wallet, which you can back up your wallet. But like if you completely delete everything, you can't just look to the blockchain to help you out because the data is not going to make as much sense. It's going to be hard to do. So I gave it an 8 out of 10 on providing proof of purchase. If we go to Zcash here, it is as far as resistance to blockchain analysis, Zcash is the best as it gets. It uses two-way zero knowledge. Again, some people think it's too much. But it is what it is. The peer-to-peer analysis is it's 9 out of 10. Again, that's basically the same as Bitcoin's. Most of these are basically the same as far as they're concerned from peer-to-peer analysis. It's only if you have to have proof of stake that your peer-to-peer analysis is going to drop. And again, that's why CoinJoin is lower. Dash itself, like I said, it's more prone to peer-to-peer analysis because it has a higher proof of stake. Proof of stake is still sort of has its methods of combating peer-to-peer analysis, but the reason why proof of work is better against peer-to-peer analysis, there's a lot of reasons, but the main reason is because you pay the nodes in proof of stake systems. The other good thing about proof of work is that the miners, there's only one miner who gets paid. You can split that up amongst shares, but it provides it ensures that bad miners that are providing bad mining power, it's harder for them to get paid, and that's always good. But anyways, that's getting a little off topic. Let's go back to Zcash. It's good against the blockchain analysis, like I just said, 9 out of 10. The private accounting on it, I give it a 7 out of 10. Zcash does have a private blockchain and a public blockchain, but the private blockchain, there's literally no data whatsoever. So with ZeroCoin, with that protocol, rather than the ZK Snark protocol that Zcash uses, with the ZeroCoin protocol, it comes back to the ZeroCoin blockchain, so you can prove it things are there, so you can use it as a cheat sheet more. But with the Zcash protocol, if it's on the private blockchain, just nothing whatsoever, so there's nothing there, so it's a little harder to use as a cheat sheet. But again, that's the point of Zcash. That's the point of the two-way zero knowledge ZK Snarks protocol, I guess I should say. Zcash is the most well known. There's also Zencash and Zclassic, but Zcash is the most well known. But it's meant to be private, so people using that don't really mind that you can't use it as a cheat sheet. That's kind of what they want. The supply auditability, though, that's an issue for two-way zero knowledge protocols that use ZK Snarks like Zcash. You can prove how much is on the public network, but you can't prove how much is on the private network. And if if coins were duplicated, if they tried to move all the coins to the public network, you would obviously figure it out. But if they kept the coins on the private network, theoretically, like if they were smart about it, they could keep it hidden. It'd be very hard to do, but they could keep it hidden. So I give it a 5 out of 10. 5 out of 10 is still definitely usable. Like obviously, if you look at Bitcoin's 4 out of 10 blockchain analysis, that's a lower score than a 5 out of 10. Um, Bitcoin's obviously a very usable cryptocurrency. It's the most usable one. But anyways, the supply auditability on Zcash is 5 out of 10. They still can do it. They can basically like estimate that it's fine, but they can't necessarily prove it. Or it'd be hard to prove it anyways. The last bit that we're talking about, the last category here, is the providing proof of purchase. So with two-way zero knowledge protocol, you can provide proof of purchase so long as you use the public network, but if you're using the private network, again, there's literally nothing there, so it's a 7 out of 10, but that's the point of that protocol. If you're using the privacy, you don't necessarily, like, you don't want proof of purchase, so that's why they do it. So again, it has a low ranking there, but that's what they want. Like everyone who uses Zcash, they don't really mind these low rankings, and that's kind of what they want. Everyone who uses Zencash or Zclassic or any other two-way zero knowledge cryptocurrency, that's what they want. So if we're looking at these, just kind of, if we want to summarize all the basics of these, Bitcoin is great at basically acting as a cheat sheet and providing proof of purchase, but because of that, it's a little less private. Something like Dash offers a lot more privacy and still allows people to look at the coin and like make sure that all the transactions are private. But again, with something that is as private as Dash, that causes issues in two areas. For Dash, it is the proof of purchase. It's a little harder to prove things if you're using the private network. And then the second thing, if you're using the private network, it's a little harder to use that as a cheat sheet for you. If you're looking at Monero, Monero is it's a very good private cryptocurrency. It's very hard to figure anything out about Monero. That makes it very, very hard to use as a cheat sheet for your own personal accounting, and it makes it very hard to provide as a proof of purchase. Again, that's what the people behind Monero wanted it to be, but it sort of limits its uses. If we look at the OneWay zero knowledge, which is generally speaking called the zero coin protocol, it's used by Zcoin. I think Zcoin is the biggest coin that uses the zero coin protocol. Oh no, Pivx uses the zero coin protocol. But anyways, these coins that use the zero coin protocol, they're great against blockchain analysis. They're great against peer-to-peer analysis. They've got great privacy, and because you can use them publicly, they work great as a cheat sheet. But again, if you're using them privately, they're a little bit harder to use as a cheat sheet. But because the zero coin protocol gets turned back into zero coin every time, it does have some data you can look at. So with Dash, like the data it's really hard to read and makes no sense. With the zero coin protocol, like if it's your own personal data, it's easy to read. You just don't have a huge amount of data, like you don't have anybody else's data, I guess. If we're looking then at the two-way zero knowledge, which is the ZK Snark protocol, which is most famously used by Zcash, or not Zcash, but Zcash, and Zencash and Zclassic, among others, that is completely resistant to blockchain analysis. 10 out of 10, completely, or it's very resistant to peer-to-peer analysis. The problem is, again, with the two-way zero knowledge, the same problem you have with Monero. It's a little bit hard to do the private accounting and to provide proof of purchase. It's better than Monero in the fact that it offers a public blockchain and a private blockchain, but if you're using that private blockchain, you're never going to get anything to work. So it's better because it provides you with an option. With Monero, you have to use the private blockchain, so you're never going to get it. So it's better, but if you're using the private one, obviously it's not going to work for your own, for acting as a cheat sheet for accounting purposes. The one issue with the two-way zero knowledge protocol that is worse than Monero is the supply auditability. You cannot prove how much supply is in the private blockchain. Like there's no number kept on it, there's no supply kept on it, and obviously you can estimate it. Like if there's 18 million Bitcoin on the public blockchain and 3 million on the private one, you would estimate that there's or I'm sorry, if there's 18 million on the public, you would estimate there's 3 million on the private. If there's 21 million coins in total, but you can't prove it. So that causes issues. Like if there's a bug that allows duplication of coins, then it's hard to prove in two-way zero knowledge Zcash snark cryptocurrencies. So it's a little bit lower on that. But again, all of these cryptocurrencies are very good. They each just have certain drawbacks. And the question is like, what do you value most? Do you value privacy higher than you value, providing proof of purchase in certain cases and providing, easy to use accounting measures? Do you want low cost transactions? There's a lot of different things. Obviously, I guess the low cost transactions things isn't really talked about too much here, but there's a lot of different issues if you're talking about the privacy of a cryptocurrency. And here's just some of the basics on the actual protocols themselves and the types of privacy they do and do not offer, and how that affects users.